1, 2, 3. Hi everyone, it's Nancy McNally, and today for the Fall Quilt Along 2025, we are going to be working on week 4. We have 2 blocks for week 4. It is Summer Winds in Wyoming Valley. All right, so if you have not downloaded your PDF for this week, remember it's only free for 1 week, go to the website. The link is in the description box below, and download it now so that you have it to sew along with me. All right, we're going to get started, and we're going to begin with our Summer Winds quilt block. To begin, we're going to work on our half score triangles. We're going to do the 2 at a time method because you're going to need 2 of each color for the half score triangles. So you're going to draw your diagonal line on your background A square, and then we're going to sew a 1/4 inch away from that drawn line. So let's get started. All right, so we're going to sew a 1/4 inch on both sides of the drawn line. So you're going to take your foot, if you have a fabric guide, run that fabric guide right along your drawn line, and your needle's going to drop a 1/4 inch away in the center hole of your foot. Now we're going to cut apart on the diagonal line that we drew. So you can use scissors or you can use your rotary cutter. Cut them apart, and now we have 2 half square triangles. You're going to press according to the arrows in the pattern. They are black. So we have 2. So let me get those pressed, and then we're going to trim them to size. Now let's trim them to size. You're going to take your ruler with the diagonal line, and you're going to place it right on your diagonal seam. Bring it all the way down to the corner, and double check before you begin trimming that the measurement you're looking for lands perfectly on the outer edges. If not, raise your ruler, move it up just a little bit on the diagonal seam, keeping the diagonal line aligned on the diagonal seam, and then trim. All right, I'm going to get mine trimmed. Hold the ruler securely. Now, a lot of times I'll put my pinky on the outside of the ruler to hold it steady. If you need to rotate and trim again to keep it, make sure it's the correct size, then go ahead and do so. I'm going to go ahead and trim that piece off. There we go, and that was all I needed to trim. You're going to repeat the process on all of the half square triangles. And then the next step, we are going to make the corner sections. Let me get set up for that, and we'll pull those together. So I have 2 of the corners laid out because I've already pieced the other 2 corners. So make sure that you lay them out before you piece them and watch the triangle placement. We're going to piece these together just like we would a 4-patch. Go right sides together, sew, and then join the 2 pairs together. So do this for all 4 corners, and then we're going to work on our stitch and flip flying geese unit. I'll get these pieced and we'll be right back. All right, so I have my 2 corners pieced. Remember, I already pieced the other ones. Now it's time to do the flying geese. So we're going to do the stitch and flip method. So we're going to start with our background squares with the diagonal line drawn. You're going to go right sides together. Now, here's how I do this. We're so used to sewing, and we start at the corner when we begin sewing. I start in the middle. And why do I do that? So that the feed dogs can grab this, all of this, and not eat the corner. So we're going to start over here, and that way the feed dogs have something to grab on, and the needle cannot force this corner down into the hole of the needle plate. So again, I'm going to start here, sew on that line, and then trim the excess off a 1/4 inch away. Then we will press it in place. You have to do this before you attempt to sew the other stitch and flip corner. The other thing I do is I take my 1/4 inch foot off and I put on my open toe foot so that I can see this drawn line clearly. Let's get started. Now, I use the method where I trim. I take my ruler and I put the 1/4 inch line on the drawn or the stitch line, and then I trim the excess, which is this corner piece right here. But if you're uncomfortable doing that, here's the second method. We're going to pull this back. We're going to leave this on. We're not going to trim the back of or this rectangle piece off. We're only going to trim this. All right. And this keeps the base on there. And so you've only trimmed this off. Now we can press this in place. And let's say you sewed it a little, let's just say cattywampus. We still have the foundation piece, which is this one, the base, in place, and it will work perfect. All right, so I'm going to press this, and then we're going to do the next one. All right, there you go. All right, now, this one, you're going to place it with a diagonal line, starting down here and coming to the center. It doesn't actually land in the center, it just comes towards the center. Again, I'm going to begin piecing here or stitching here, not down here. Let's get this one sewn. All right, here we go again. So remember, we have this piece that's going to get trimmed, and we're going to leave this one. Now my other flying geese units, I did not use this method. I just want to show you this method in case you don't like the stitch and flip method. Now you have this one. This is an alternate way. You don't have to trim the background piece or the original foundation piece. All right, so we're going to flip this in place and press. And there you have it. So the next step is to take your background rectangle, right sides together, and we're going to stitch one of these on top of all of the flying geese units. And then you will press. All right, let me get this one pressed, and then we're going to pull the block together. As you can see, I've already joined the center row of the block. So I have my coral flying geese, and I have my red flying geese, and I have the background rectangles sewn to the top. So I have our corner units in place, 1, 2, 3, 4, and all you're going to do is sew this row together and join. This will be row 1. You're going to join it to row 2. So this row together, which is row 3, and join row 3 to the center row. Give it a press, and you're done. All right, let me get mine sewn. Be right back. So for our first step, we're going to be making the 4 at a time half square triangles. You're going to go right sides together. Now I have the red. So we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam around all 4 edges. All right, let me do mine, and then I'm going to show you how to cut it apart, and then we will trim. Now you already have seen how to trim half square triangles down to size. If you need a refresh on that, you can go back and see that in any of the other Fall Quilt Along videos. All right, I have sewn around all 4 edges, and now it's time to cut it apart. So I have my rotating, revolving cutting mat here. So I'm going to lay my ruler from diagonal, corner to corner on the diagonal, and we're going to cut apart. Now, if you don't have a rotating mat, if you have a smaller cutting mat that you can do this, you can just pick it up and rotate it. Use that. Now I have the Lazy Susan part of this off so that I could just show you how to just pick up your mat and rotate it. Now we're going to do the other angle. Very easy. See, now I have 4 half square triangles. There we go. All right, I'm going to press these and trim these to size, and then we're going to get started on the next section. Lay out your corner units. Remember, we're using the same method to make the half square triangles of the teal and the red. So trim them to size. Now let's lay them out. You're going to have your background square here. Your 2 red half square triangles are going to come together, and the tips are going to touch, just like this. And then, here, I'll put it this way. There we go. And then your teal jade the color will face towards the center of the quilt block. You're going to piece these just like you would a 4 patch. So let me get mine done, and then we'll move on to the next section, which is the star points of the Wyoming Valley quilt block. Now we're going to begin the star points. You need to separate your blue, your dark blue, D rectangles. You need a left group and a right group. You will have 4 in each. This is important. Go ahead and draw your diagonal lines on your F background squares and your F red squares. So we're going to do the stitch and flip method, and the only reason I'm showing you this is because we have a left and a right. These are directional. So we're going to take this one, go right sides together, and this is your background square. So the diagonal line is going to run from the top left down towards this center, excuse me, of the D of your blue. It doesn't land directly in the center, but it goes towards the center. We're going to place this one on there. Now this is the right group, the right hand side. Notice how they're like this. They're starting in opposite corners, and they're both landing towards the center. You're going to do the same thing with the red. So remember, stitch on the line, and then you're going to trim 1/4 inch away. Or you're only going to trim this one, or you can trim both layers, your background and your blue, or you can just trim this piece right here. Make sure you trim it 1/4 inch away from your stitch line. Repeat the process with your red. So let me get this one sewn. So let's get this one done, and you're going to repeat the process on this side, the right hand group. Now I'm going to get this one sewn, and then we'll join these together. As you can see, I have them both ready. So you can see that these are the star points. All right, now our next step is just to sew these together. Make sure you're sewing the white background fabric together to create this V in the middle. And then the dark blue also forms like a wider V. All right, let's get this sewn, and then I'll meet you back here and we'll pull the whole block together. As you can see, I have my Wyoming Valley block completed. Let's get that little thread out of there. All right, so I will confess, I actually had sewn for the bottom row, these two right here, I had sewn them in the wrong direction, so I had to take them apart and redo it. I was like, oh man. All right, so we've got our Wyoming Valley done. This is week 4. There you go. So thank you for joining me today, and I hope you look forward to making your quilt blocks with this fall quilt along for 2025. Remember, you only get these blocks for 1 week, and then I take them down, and then the new block will be coming up. We only have 3 weeks left. We have 5, 6, and 7 remaining after these right here. So see you next time. Have a wonderful day and happy quilting.